Tantor Audio presents The Reason, How I Discovered a Life Worth Living by Lacey Sturm, narrated by Tavia, Gilbert. It would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition, when infinite joy is offered us, like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We are far too easily pleased. C.S. Lewis, The Weight of Glory. Forward. There is a state of being that unfortunately countless people have fallen into, a place so empty that words fail to accurately express the hopelessness felt in the soul. The person feels completely and utterly lost. Besides the heartbeat keeping the body alive, all else seems dead. The end. But that very end can become a new beginning, where a brand new structure rises out of the gloom of emptiness. There have been countless stories about this mind-boggling change of existence, and my life happens to be one of them. I co-founded the rock band Korn in the early 1990s. My success exceeded way beyond what I ever could have hoped for, but my failures totally shattered all of my accomplishments, and I was left to waste away in a prison of drug addiction, depression, and despair. I was spared for a reason. The heart of a human being isn't only an organ that pumps blood through the veins. The heart is at the very core of who a person is. It has the capacity to experience the bliss of heaven. It has the capacity to feel the miserable hollowness of hell. Lacey Sturm has experienced both of these extremes, and she has been given an incredibly important platform to help turn our generation around. I've known Lacey for a few years now, and her story will always be one of the most jaw-dropping life transformations I've ever heard. Each time I hear her story, I can feel her hopeless pain and sorrow as she reached the point where she gave up on life after trying to satisfy herself with the world's antidotes, which only left her soul in agony. Lacey was spared for a reason. Pain is an interesting experience we all have to go through. In this race of life, pain has the power to drag us down and ruin the rest of our lives, or it can be used as wind under our wings to lift us to the glorious heights of destiny. We've seen it countless times. Parents of a murdered child fall into a lifetime of depression, or they start an organization in their child's name to help others. A rape victim becomes an alcoholic to deal with her pain, or she starts a program to help other rape victims get past the horrors of their experience. Lacey has yielded to the process of pain turned into power. She has lifted and inspired so many people, male and female, and this girl is barely getting started. Lacey is a true poet and songwriter who speaks the language of the heart. Her soul is a hope magnet for countless other souls slipping away into nothingness like she once was. I am proud to call Lacey and her husband Josh my friends, and I can't wait to see the results of this book for decades to come. A book with this much substance will, without a doubt, live on to change lives for generations. I truly believe Lacey's story has fallen into your hands at the perfect time. Dive right in and find out the reason. Brian Head Welch, Korn, Love and Death. This today. I wasn't supposed to wake up today. My bedroom here feels huge compared to the other places I've lived. It feels too big for a girl like me. Maybe one day I'll move into an old van and feel more at home. Over there is the poster of my dream car, a Volkswagen camper, hanging alone on the big wall across from my bed. An empty Ben & Jerry's chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream container filled with dried flowers sits on my dresser. It's from my friend date with Jacob. At the time, I secretly hoped he would break up with his girlfriend of 3 years, the one he fought with all the time, and fall in love with me. That way we could stay up late together, reading Robert Jordan epic fantasy novels. Memory boxes fill the underside of my bedside table. One is filled with the evidence of my first love, Ryan, notes he gave me in between classes, the lighter I used to burn a smiley tattoo into my hand the first time we got high together, his copy of The Vampire Lestat, the book he was reading the first time I saw him, the one that distinguished him from the other 7th-grade boys. I have a drawer full of pictures that my little brother and sisters drew for me. They remind me to see the beauty in every day, to keep going. A bass guitar sits in the corner wearing a fuzzy purple strap called Purple Haze. My backpack beside my closet door is filled with books and a script for a play I plan to audition for next Friday. I had tacked my ticket to next month's Pantera show at the Mississippi Gulf Coast Coliseum to the wall beside my bed, next to a picture of Dimebag Darrell I had torn out of Guitar World magazine. This is how they would have found my room. Apparently I had some dreams, goals, things I valued about my life. But if I'm honest, none of the things I thought mattered were really important to me. If they were, then I don't suppose I would have planned to kill myself yesterday. But now, here I am. I'm here, waking up. I'm rising to a new today. And this today looks and smells different to me. I'm just lying on my bed, looking around, noticing all my stuff. But it feels like I'm really opening my eyes for the first time. On this today, I forgot to hate that I woke up again like I have done every morning for years. Something lingers in this room. It's something real and full of meaning. What will replace my hate? Is it this lingering thing I feel all around me? Today I'm fully alive, for the first time, and I don't want this freedom from my hate to go away. I want it to stay. I want it to soar. And I want to soar with it. From Shadows. Shadows remain. Daily we war with our own hearts, pushing down the hurt, pain, disillusionment, disappointment, bitterness, and betrayal. God's brilliance, however, compels us through the shadows. We long for it. Timothy Willard, Home Behind the Sun. 1. The Reason I Lived. My mother lay unconscious, covered in blood. Blood smeared her face and hair and soaked her entire gown. Granny screamed for help. The nurse rushed in and tried to calm her. I know it looks bad right now, but she's going to be okay. Eventually, the nurse admitted that they had almost lost both of us, but they were relieved to stabilize my mother. They continued working on me, trying to help me breathe properly. But the whole scene was a mess, and this bothered my granny, and when granny's bothered, you know it. She cussed the nurse out. Why didn't you clean her off? Someone get water and towels and clean the blood off my baby. I'm serious. Who treats people like this? I'm reporting this whole hospital. Get my baby something to clean her off. The nurse tried to calm her again. We've stabilized the mother, but we need to care flight the baby to Miami, and we need someone to go with her. Granny pointed to my 16-year-old mother and yelled at the nurse, That is my baby! Now she began to cuss the whole hospital out. How in the world do you treat people as badly as this and still have a job here? I thought y'all were supposed to be helping people. She looks like y'all have been trying to kill her. How come nobody has even wiped the blood off her face and her little hands? I ain't leaving her with y'all. Look at her. No one is taking care of her. That was my granny, a striking 29-year-old woman with long platinum blonde hair that fell in beautiful heaps down her back. Her dark lashes curled long and elegant against her brows and revealed her deep blue eyes. Her penetrating gaze held steady and true, even when she laughed. Beautiful and unafraid, she had a passion for her loved ones. My mother is our firstborn daughter. Still today she calls my mom her baby. We are all her babies in her mind. Back then my granny would stand in a room wearing baggy sweats and drinking a Coke, saying nothing, just minding her own business, and capture a room with her beauty. That's the strange thing about physical beauty. It makes people notice, wonder, and doubt themselves. It can be a lonely gift. As a child, I looked at my grandmother the way a young girl would look at a real-life princess. I hung on her every word. When she said my name or looked in my direction, I blushed and felt honored. When she praised me, I felt like everything was right in the world. She taught us to fight for what we believed in, to do whatever we could to help rescue whomever needed rescuing. She taught us to treat strangers this way, not just our loved ones. She raised one passionate man and 3 passionate women. Even at 16, my mother was passionate enough to risk her life delivering me, a child expected to die anyway. And as my mother fought for me to live, not thinking of herself, Granny now fought for my mother, knowing that no one in that hospital loved my mom like she did. It was suggested months earlier that my mother not risk having another baby. They didn't think it would be safe because of complications she'd endured while delivering my brother Eric just 10 months earlier. Not only were there medical risks for both of us, but it was also complicated because of what she had been through with my father. He was a young, handsome Native American man. My mother said he was daring, protective, and had the most beautiful heart. But that was only when he was sober. The hulkish person he became after a typical night of drinking landed him in jail many times. By the time my mother was pregnant with me, an extended stay in prison was just around the corner for my father. In the future, his stay in correctional facilities would bring him salvation in a few different ways, but at this point in time it only left my mother on her own, at 16, with 1 child and another on the way, so the doctors suggested she abort me. My mother ignored their suggestion. My granny continued to argue with the nurse, until finally they sent me on to the hospital in Miami alone. My mother laughs now and says, "You were on tour from day 1. Before I left for Miami, the doctors didn't hold out much hope. I was born 2 months premature, and since lungs are the last thing to develop, I was having some critical issues. They feared I would die at any moment because I couldn't breathe correctly. 3 days later, however, those same doubting doctors declared me a miracle. No one could explain why. No explanation, no real reason. I was breathing fine and could go home. When they finally handed me to my mother, I was small enough to fit in the palm of her hand. She said I looked like a little monkey because I was covered in hair. I was so fragile she was scared to hold me, let alone allow anyone else to. She was afraid I'd break. Maybe this was why she was always so tough on me. Maybe she wanted to teach me to be much stronger and more unbreakable than I looked. More to overcome. Not long after I went home with my mother, I caught whooping cough. I once again struggled to breathe. I wouldn't take a bottle. I began to lose weight. My mom took me to the emergency room, where doctors and nurses worked to bring me back to health. Eventually, they wanted to transfer me to another hospital in a different town. My mother became distraught at this suggestion. My mom had been trying to work things out with my dad. She was in love with him. She wanted him to be around to know his children. When my granny announced that she and her husband were moving a state away, my mother resolved to stay put with my father. She clung to the vain hope that perhaps having 2 children would curb his appetite for alcohol and violence. But now, with her mother gone and her love in jail again, she was all on her own. Putting me in a different hospital, a town away for who knows how long, now presented more stress than just worrying if I was ever going to get better. But what about my 11-month-old son I have at home? I don't know anyone in that town. Where will we stay? She asked. The people at the hospital couldn't give my mother any answers for that. After asking around, she finally found some friends who were willing to help out. It was a difficult thing for her to leave her son for an indefinite amount of time, knowing she would be so far away from him, but it wasn't nearly as difficult as what would come next. We stayed so long in the hospital that my mother lost her apartment. Now she had 2 children and no home. I was getting better, but had to be force-fed with a feeding tube. It can be fatal to force-feed a baby if the tube accidentally goes into the lungs instead of the stomach, and that can happen easily. My mother understood the risks and felt uncomfortable trying to do it exactly right on her own. She knew it was an important part of my survival. So with a heavy heart, my mom agreed to place me in foster care. There was a kind couple who were willing to take me home and give me the special care I needed. But by the time she went to pick up my brother, she had no place to live with him. It was hard to find someone willing to take both her and her son in until she could get on her feet again. She went over the desperate situation with some of her friends, and they gave her some logical advice. Listen, maybe you just need to think about making sure your son has a stable place to stay. There are lots of loving families who can't have kids that would take care of Eric with joy. It might be the best thing for both of you if you took him down to the foster care offices and let them try to find a good place for him. This was actually very loving and good advice. It was sensible. My mother did not want to give up her son. She had just given up her daughter. It was all too much. But she didn't know what else to do. Overwhelmed, she reluctantly agreed. Her friends took her to drop off her only son. But that night she couldn't sleep. All night long she wrestled with her decision. In the morning she was back in the foster care offices, pleading with anyone who would listen. Look, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have left my babies. They need to be with their mama. Well, find a job and a place to live, she was told. Keep your residence for 3 months, and we'll give your children back to you. Eventually, she met the requirements and got Eric back, but they wanted to wait until I was able to eat on my own. Finally, I was fat enough and well enough. Though my foster parents offered to adopt me, my mama, the state, and God decided she would be the one to raise me. Cause and effect. I survived, like we all do, against the odds. I should be dead. I should be a statistic. I shouldn't be scribbling all over this page trying to describe the indescribable. So what happened? Was it chance, an accident, or dumb fate that I'm here now, a 30-something rock and roll mom looking back and collecting pieces of hope to give you? I don't believe in fate or accidents. I believe in cause and effect. Behind everything lies a cause, a reason. Why does the sun rise? Because the earth revolves once every 24 hours. Why do we read? Because, some say, we don't want to feel alone. Why am I alive, writing to you? Because I want to tell you that miracles happen. Because I want you to know how precious life can be. Because I want you to know how valuable you really are. Because the world will throw lies at you, lies aimed at your heart, aimed to kill. I choose not to listen to those lies anymore. Cause and effect. Imagine the scene I described above. The blood, the profanity, the risk to give birth to a child all the smart people thought should be aborted. Now place it all in the hands of a God who cares and has a plan for each person. In the chaos, God's plan was working. His plan for me touched other people. They saw me live and not die. They saw the miracle. Our lives stretch out like shafts of light reaching into the lives of everyone else. You and I, we sparkle with reason, a cause, a plan. We are like a giant web of light and meaning and sadness and wonder. What if you and I lived like we knew this? What if we lived with the confidence that comes from walking in the bright of day? What if we treated one another with the love we desire for ourselves? What would happen if we understood how our lives touch every person we encounter in this world? I strive to rest in the fact that I am made for a purpose. Knowing my life has purpose gives me confidence. When I live in the light of that confidence, it can empower you. It can make you confident as well. It can help you see yourself in truth and live unafraid. And when we live unafraid, we live in the light of love. For true love casts out fear. That's how we sparkle. That's the web of light I see stretching from heaven into my life, into yours. Chances are, if we lived like we knew this, our lives would shatter much of the sadness and pain that are so common in our broken world. I like that thought. I entered this life barely breathing, but now I'm singing my song out loud, and I'm shouting the lovely sounds of life and grace and hope. I almost died, but death has to wait because I have a song to sing, and so do you. My song sounds like the healing of a soul and the rising of life. What does yours sound like? I'm no longer just barely breathing. I'm living in the cause and effect of a life seized. I have reason to breathe. Before I disappear into the sound, I want you to know the reason. 2. The reason I love jazz. My mother is an artist. She writes her own music, plays guitar, and sings. And she loves jazz music. I was 5 when my little sister was born. My mother named her Jazzelyn, Jazz for short. I remember fighting in the back seat with my siblings, each of us yelling for my mom to intervene with justice on our behalf. My mother's response was to turn the radio to smooth jazz. She turned it up so loud none of us could hear anything else. She played jazz in the morning as a way to get us up for school. I hated it. I hated it even worse when I would walk home from school with my friends and we could hear Kenny G's saxophone blaring from the open windows of our house. This meant my mother was in the living room, in spandex, doing her own form of yoga stretches. I couldn't help but hate jazz music, since my mom loved it, and a big part of my life at that time was all about hating whatever my mom liked. Although I'm still not the biggest Kenny G fan, I've learned to appreciate and love certain types of jazz. I think jazz represents my family history well. It's my mother's life soundtrack. I've come to find both her and jazz music fascinating and inspiring, especially after becoming a mom myself. Chronically distracted. Jazz music makes a good soundtrack for a life of being chronically distracted. Forgetting the past, living in the present, going with whatever you feel no matter what anyone thinks about it. Jazz is a genre of music that is distinguished because it is a constant flow of thought that has no pattern. It doesn't follow rules, it changes with the wind, in a way, and you never can tell where it will go and what it will do. Like the time my mother was waiting in line at a restaurant and a woman walked in wearing strong perfume. My sister, sensing my mother's disapproval of the scent by the way she was holding her nose and gagging, implored my mother, "Mom, please don't say anything." The woman did not correlate my mother's very loud gagging with her stinky perfume, so my mother helped her understand. "Excuse me? Excuse me?" Now the lady began to notice my mother. "Yes, you. Ugh. Cough, cough. Your perfume is making me nauseated." Gagging and more gagging. The lady looked at my mom, amazed, and said, I'm sorry?" My mom took this to mean, "What can I do to help your nausea?" So she told her, "Could you please go somewhere else? Like, way over there, please?" Cough, cough, gag, gag. Jazz music breaks all the rules on purpose. Like when the Mary Kay lady showed up at our house. During her demonstration, she was bewildered almost to the point of leaving, as my mom ignored her instructions and put a pretty color of eyeshadow on her lips. "That is eyeshadow, ma'am." My mom just continued applying it. "I know," she said. I liked my mom's choice of eyeshadow as a lipstick better than any of the legitimate choices of lipstick the Mary Kay lady offered. I thought to myself, this is how the world gets changed. Someone says this is the way it should be, no matter what they say, and they turn out to be right. Jazz makes its own unpredictable, mind-blowing sense of whatever notes it decides to put together, and jazz keeps going long after you think it should have given up. My mother is a living jazz piece. If you're expecting any other more predictable genre of music out of her life, she'll rub you the wrong way. But if you expect the unexpected, then maybe you can move along, laugh, cry, scream, and dance with the song of my mother. I used to watch, fascinated, as she'd dress for work in the evening. She'd blow-dry her hair upside down and allow gravity to work its magic on it, getting it as big as possible. Then she would take a comb and tease the roots, making it even bigger. She'd blow-dry the sides out into 2 wings. Big silver hoop earrings dangled from her lobes and covered her cheeks. I watched her apply her makeup with awe. Her eyeshadow faded into every color of the rainbow as it spread from the corner of her hazel eyes all the way to her temples. Her lips gleamed with a shimmering shade of fuchsia. She wore designer shirts called wind-blown duck with a studded belt hanging on her hips. Her black leggings, splattered with different shades of gray, came just above her graceful ankles. Her pearl-colored toenails hid inside her pink snakeskin patent leather high heels. She always completed the ensemble with her pink leather jacket. I loved the way the jacket smelled, mysterious and enchanting. It was the smell of a beautiful woman. It was the smell of a woman who understood what it meant to live in the now. People don't know what to do with a person like my mom. How do you respond to a person who wears every ounce of her passion on her sleeve? But whenever I think about the times when things were hard, I remind myself that we struggled through together and made it together because of the artistry of my mom's life. I've come to love that about jazz music. I've learned to love that about my mom. We would be on our way somewhere in the car, and suddenly she'd say, "Hey, I have the guitar. Let's go to the botanical gardens instead." I love how she'd color with me and give Ken and Barbie an amazing pink, orange, red, and purple sunset on the wall behind them. I love how even if we could have afforded it, we still would never have bought greeting cards for anyone. Instead, we always made our own with poems we wrote and pictures we drew. That is the genius of my mom, full of the jazz that paints a different world. Better means less. Mom taught us the importance of kindness and compassion. Being considerate of others was her chief value. We always put ourselves last. One time I came home, and my older brother's bed was gone. "Where's your bed?" I asked him. "Mom gave it to Lily and her kids." "Oh." I thought for a second and then asked, "Well, what are you going to sleep on then?" "A pallet, I guess. I don't care," he answered. I'd watch my mom give away our food stamps. I'd ask, "But Mom, what about our groceries?" "God will feed us, Lacey," she'd answer, annoyed that I was questioning her about it. She was always right. Several times she woke us in the middle of the night, before we were old enough to stay by ourselves, and piled us in the car to go help a friend who was having problems with her boyfriend, or whose car had broken down, or who needed a place to sleep. "You never know when you will be in the same position. We all need help sometimes," she would say. And she was right. I met so many generous people throughout my childhood who opened their homes to us when we had nowhere else to go, like the large Hispanic family of at least 12 people who all lived together in a tiny apartment. At night, the bedrooms and living room furniture were all full of sleeping family members. During the day, the kitchen was always filled with people cooking, cleaning, or preparing for the next meal. No matter how many people ate from the pot of beans and rice, it never seemed to go empty. When our family needed help, this family was an example of selfless generosity to us. They took us in, fed us, and gave us a space to sleep on their floor. Another woman who loved us like we were her own family was a beautiful lady named Maureen. While my mother was going to school and working on music projects, Maureen picked us up from school and made us hot meals. When we stayed the night, she made pallets in front of the TV, where we watched movies and ate popcorn. Popcorn still reminds me of the loving hospitality she showed us. She often noticed when I seemed heartbroken, and she'd always ask me about it. This was a time when bullying at school was the most intense for me, so we talked about that a lot. She told me the story of the ugly duckling and said, "Lacey, you are so beautiful, but sometimes it's hard for others to see past the outside or to see potential for the future. But one day you will be a lovely swan, and everyone will notice your beauty. But because you were once thought to be an ugly duckling, you will be able to see the beauty in others that the world thinks unlovely. And you will be the one telling them they are beautiful the way I am telling you. I know because I was an ugly duckling too." I read later on that God places the lonely in families. Psalms chapter 68, verse 6. Oftentimes I watched this play out for us when we struggled. My mother humbly accepted help whenever she felt she could trust the people offering it. There was an organization in my hometown called Mission Arlington. They would help us by giving us groceries sometimes and make sure we had a nice Christmas. That's one of the reasons why I believed it.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?